The transport pod shuddered as it descended through the atmosphere of Station Apps, its hull scarred from a dozen firefights across the outer rim. Inside, Finch gripped the controls with calloused hands, his jaw set in that familiar expression of grim determination that had kept him alive through 3 tours of the Draconian Wars. In the cargo hold behind him, wrapped in thermal blankets and shivering despite her scaled skin, Saturday frozen. She was barely 17 by human standards, though her kind aged differently. Silver scales caught the dim emergency lighting, creating patterns like moonlight on water across her arms and neck. Small horns, not yet fully grown, curved back from her temples. Her eyes, those distinctive vertical pupils that had made her species. Both feared and hunted, darted nervously around the cramped space. "Where are we going?" she asked for the 3rd time in as many hours, her voice carrying that melodic quality all dragonfolk possessed. Finch didn't answer immediately. He'd learned in the war that silence was often the safest response. But this wasn't the war anymore, he reminded himself. This was something else entirely. "Somewhere they won't find you," he finally said, adjusting their trajectory to avoid the main docking ports. "Somewhere you can just be a kid." Frozen pulled the blankets tighter. "I'm too young to be a wife," she whispered, repeating the words she'd said when he found her in that holding cell on Draken Prime. The words that had changed everything. Finch had been on a routine extraction mission and grab the data chip, leave no trace. Instead, he'd stumbled upon the breeding facility. Rows of cells, each containing a young dragon girl, each marked with breeding contracts to off-world buyers. The Draconian Council had sold them off, desperate for resources after the war had devastated their homeworld. He should have left. Mission parameters were clear, but when he'd seen Frozen, pressed against the energy bars of her cell, eyes full of terror and defiance in equal measure, something in him had broken. Or perhaps something had finally healed. The pod touched down on a remote landing platform in the agricultural sector, far from the station's commercial hub. Finch had called in a favor from an old squadmate. Reeves owned a hydroponic farm out here, asked no questions, and owed Finch his life from Kepler-9. "Stay close," Finch ordered as the hatch hissed open. The artificial atmosphere of the station rushed in, carrying the scent of growing things and recycled air. Frozen emerged slowly, her bare feet silent on the metal deck. She'd grown up in captivity, never knowing the freedom her ancestors had enjoyed when they ruled the skies of their homeworld. Every sound made her flinch, every shadow a potential threat. Reeves met them at the edge of the platform, his weathered face breaking into a cautious smile. "Finch, you old war dog." Didn't expect. He stopped when he saw Frozen, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Ah, that kind of favor." "She needs to disappear," Finch said quietly. "The Draconian Council has buyers looking for her. High-value merchandise, they're calling it." "Merchandise?" Reeves spat. "After everything we fought for." He shook his head, then gestured toward the farm complex. "Come on, I've got space in the east greenhouse. Good cover, plenty of room. She can help with the vertical gardens if she wants something to do." Over the following weeks, Frozen began to emerge from her shell. The greenhouse became her sanctuary, a place where she could spread her wings, still small, still developing without fear of being seen. She learned to tend the tomato vines and pepper plants, her scaled hands surprisingly gentle with the delicate seedlings. Finch watched her transform. The fear in her eyes slowly gave way to curiosity, then wonder. She asked endless questions about the world beyond her cell, about the stars, about freedom. He answered as best he could, though sometimes her questions cut too close to wounds he'd thought scarred over. "Why did you save me?" she asked one evening as they sat among the hydroponic rows, the artificial sunset of the station's day cycle painting, everything in shades of orange and gold. Finch was quiet for a long moment. "I spent 3 years fighting your people," he said finally. "Killed more dragons than I can count. Was taught they were monsters, enemies, threats to humanity." He looked at her, really looked at her, this child who'd never known anything but chains. "Then I saw what we'd become, what we were willing to do. Someone had to say no." Frozen's vertical pupils dilated, processing his words. "You feel guilty, maybe, or maybe I finally figured out what I was supposed to be fighting for all along." 2 months after their arrival, the broadcasts started. The Draconian Council had gone public, claiming a kidnapped princess needed to be returned for an arranged diplomatic union. They painted Finch as a war criminal, Frozen as a helpless victim needing rescue. "They're lying," Frozen said, watching the news feed with clenched fists. "I'm not a princess. I'm just a kid who wants to grow up." "I know," Finch replied. "But they're making this bigger. We need to move again." "No." Frozen's voice carried a new strength, a fire he hadn't heard before. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of being something for someone else to own or trade or marry off. She turned to face him, wings spreading slightly in unconscious challenge. You taught me what freedom means. Now teach me how to fight for it. Finch saw something in her then, not the frightened child from the cell, but the beginning of what she could become. A dragon who chose her own path. A person, not property. All right, he said slowly. But we do this smart. Gather allies. Build a case. Expose what the council is really doing. No more running, but no suicide missions either. Frozen smiled, showing just a hint of the fangs that would one day be formidable. Deal, after all. I'm too young to be a wife, but I'm old enough to be free. In the greenhouse around them, new plants pushed toward the light, growing despite the artificial environment, thriving against the odds. Finch thought that was fitting. Sometimes freedom was cultivated in the most unlikely places, by the most unlikely people, and sometimes the best thing a warrior could do was protect someone's right to grow up on their own terms.